Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cracking open some really thought-provoking material.
Yeah, we've got excerpts from a YouTube interview transcript featuring Wendy Suzuki. She's a dean and professor of neuroscience and psychology. Really fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. We're diving deep into her insights, looking at the surprising ways exercise affects the brain.
And also this really interesting take she has on anxiety, how we can actually reframe it, based on the science.
So our mission today is to go through this together, pull out the key ideas, those nuggets of knowledge for you.
Exactly, helping you understand what she's learned through her research, but also her own personal experience.
Okay, let's jump in. Where do we start? Brain and exercise.
Let's do it. So to really get the brain-body connection, we need to talk about the hippocampus.
Right, the memory center.
Pretty much. It's absolutely fundamental for forming and keeping track of new long-term memories, like facts, events, things that happen to you.
And the sources bring up that famous case, patient H.M. Henry Molaison.
Yeah, exactly. His story, it really highlighted just how critical the hippocampus is. After his surgery, he couldn't form new long-term memories.
Wow. So the expert, her research started there with hippocampus.
It did. But her journey into studying exercise specifically, well, that was more personal.
Oh, how so?
She describes this period, intensely focused on getting tenure, working constantly.
Been there. Feeling unbalanced, maybe?
Totally. Unbalanced,
Yeah.
lethargic. And she just realized, okay, something needs to change.
And that change was exercise.
Yep. She started working out. And it wasn't instant, but maybe a year and a half in, she had this, amazing realization.
What happened?
She just noticed her memory felt sharper. Her focus was better. That's the prefrontal cortex working. And she specifically remembers writing a research grant, and it just flowed way better than usual.
So the light bulb moment for the neuroscientist in her.
Exactly. She thought, okay, what is exercise actually doing to my brain?
Which leads to this great analogy she uses.
Yeah, the neurochemical bubble bath. She says you get this every single time you move your body, even a little bit.
A neurochemical bubble bath. I like that. So what's in this bubble bath?
Okay, you've got dopamine, serotonin, noradrenaline, and endorphins.
Endorphins, that's the runner's high thing, right?
It is, yeah. That's a big part of it. But the key takeaway, and this is important, is you don't need to be like an ultra marathoner to get the benefits.
Okay, good news. So if I just say, go for a walk, what happens right after?
Well, the immediate effects are pretty striking, actually. Even just 10 minutes of walking can significantly improve your mood state.
Really? 10 minutes?
Yeah. Measurably less depression, less anxiety, and more positive mood.
Wow.
Plus, right away, it sharpens up tasks that use your prefrontal cortex. Things like shifting your attention, focusing better. Even reaction time speeds up.
So a quick walk gives you immediate happiness and makes you think better. That's pretty compelling.
It really is. Instant gratification for the brain.
But what about the long haul? If you make this bubble bath, a regular thing, weeks, months.
Okay. That's when things get really interesting structurally. You start releasing growth factors.
Growth factors. And where do they go?
They head straight for those key areas we mentioned, the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, and what do they do there? In the hippocampus, for instance.
Something amazing happens. The hippocampus is one of the very few brain areas where adults can actually grow brand new brain cells.
Seriously? New cells?
Yep. These growth factors literally help it grow shiny, new hippocampal cells. The expert actually describes the hippocampus getting bigger, fatter, and fluffier.
Bigger, fatter, and fluffier. I want that for my hippocampus, and that means better memory.
That's the correlation, yeah. Better memory function over time linked to that anatomical change.
Okay, what about the prefrontal cortex? Does it get fluffy too?
Not exactly new cells like the hippocampus, but the evidence suggests that the connections, the output, wires, the axons, they get more efficient, they work better with regular exercise.
Like optimizing the wiring.
Exactly. She uses the example of, say, Serena Williams. Decades of intense exercise probably means she has really, really well-insulated axons, helps explain that incredible focus, those super fast reactions.
Making the existing highway faster, basically.
You got it. And all this change, this optimization, it comes back to brain plasticity.
The brain's ability to adapt and change itself.
Precisely. It's this fantastic capacity your brain has to modify its structure, its wiring, based on what you do, your environment. And physical activity is a powerful input.
Which means it's never too late, even if you've been mostly on the couch.
That's the really exciting part. You haven't missed the boat. You can start influencing your brain's plasticity right now, moving toward that bigger, fatter, fluffier, and happier brain. It responds.
That's genuinely encouraging.
Hmm.
But, okay, here's the million-dollar question. Knowing all this is great, but how do you actually get moving? Motivation is tough.
Oh, yeah. She acknowledges that's the huge challenge. Her number one tip: start small. And crucially, start with something you actually like.
Don't force yourself to run if you hate running.
Exactly. If you dread it, you won't stick with it. Find movement that doesn't feel like punishment. Be creative.
Like her examples of, what, turning chores into exercise?
Yeah. Channel your inner Mrs. Doubtfire with the vacuum. Seriously, though, add some energy, maybe some music to cleaning. Gardening counts. Think really broadly about what movement means.
If it gets you moving, it counts.
Yeah.
And doing it with others helps.
Definitely. Friends make it more fun, plus there's that bit of accountability, right?
Right.
And she also suggests rethinking big, scary goals, like those huge New Year's resolutions that fizzle out.
Yeah. What's the alternative?
Set smaller goals, things that feel doable, maybe even a little exciting to try rather than overwhelming.
And keep coming back to that minimum effective dose.
Yes. She really hammers home the power of just 10 minutes, that short walk. It's enough to start getting that immediate mood boost, that neurochemical bubble bath.
No fancy gear needed.
Nope. No special clothes, no special shoes required. Just start small, park a bit farther away, walk an extra lap in the mall. Little things add up.
Okay, let's talk timing. Is there a magical best time to work out?
Well, her first answer is always the most practical one. The best time is any time you can actually fit it in, period.
Don't get hung up on perfection if it means you do nothing.
Exactly. Consistency trumps the perfect time. Just get it done.
Fair point.
Yeah.
But she does have a personal preference, right? And there's science behind it.
She does. She's a big fan of working out first thing in the morning.
Why money?
Simple logic, really. It's less likely to get pushed aside by, life happening during the day. Plus, you start your day already having given your brain those immediate benefits.
Ah, so you walk into your day feeling happier, sharper, quicker.
That's the idea. Bring that good brain energy with you from the get-go.
But switching to mornings, she admits that wasn't easy.
Not at all. She calls it like 2 weeks of pain. You're basically trying to reset your body clock, your circadian rhythm.
He's going to bed earlier.
Yep. Requires real discipline. Avoiding those late-night distractions, like one more episode on Netflix that turns into 3.
We've all been there. Okay, what if morning just doesn't work? What about late-night exercise?
You absolutely still get the benefits. The bubble bath still happens.
But there's a catch.
Yeah, the potential downside is those endorphins, while great, can make it harder to wind down for sleep. You need time to cool down, physically and mentally.
Right. She mentioned feeling wired after giving an evening lecture.
Exactly. That activated state needs a buffer period before you can expect to fall asleep easily.
So it really comes down to self-experimentation, finding what works for your body, your schedule.
Precisely. And knowing the science, knowing why it helps, empowers that experimentation. Maybe keep a journal. See how different times affect your energy, your sleep, your mood. Use the science to guide your own discovery.
Okay, we've talked a lot about moving the body. But the source also mentions meditation, offering similar benefits.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Research is showing that meditation, even though it's about stillness, seems to improve mood, lower anxiety and depression, and sharpen focus in ways that, well, echo the effects of exercise.
And there was a specific study mentioned.
There was. They had people do just 13 minutes of guided meditation every day for, I think it was 3 months, compared them to a group just listening to a podcast.
And the results?
The meditation group showed similar improvements in mood and focus. Really compelling.
That feels counterintuitive.
Yeah.
How does sitting still do that, like movement does?
That's the big question, isn't it? The exact mechanisms. We're still not totally sure how stillness achieves some of these similar brain benefits. It's an active research area.
But the results suggest it's another tool worth exploring for brain health.
Absolutely. And just like exercise, you might need to experiment to find what works for you.
Right. She mentioned guided meditations didn't quite click for her.
Yeah, but she found this personal ritual, a tea meditation, that she loves and sticks with. It just highlights that it's about finding your path, whether it's apps, classes, or something you create yourself.
Now, these findings are incredibly positive, almost transformative. But the source does acknowledge some scientific skepticism,
Hmm.
right, about how strong these exercise claims are.
Yes, and that's a healthy part of science. Skeptics point out that, randomized controlled trials in humans sometimes show more subtle effects.
Compared to maybe broader observational studies.
Exactly. And they rightly note that exercise often comes packaged with other good things: better sleep, maybe improved diet, better cardiovascular health. So it's hard to isolate just the exercise effects sometimes.
And the expert, Suzuki, she accepts that complexity.
Oh, completely. She basically says, you're absolutely right. She acknowledges the challenge and says skepticism actually pushes science forward, makes experiments better.
But she still seems very optimistic about exercise's power for the brain.
Mm.
Why? What fuels that conviction?
A big part of it comes from animal studies, especially with rodents. In the lab, you can control variables much more tightly.
And what do those studies show?
They show clear, definitive anatomical changes. Like, you can actually see the growth of new hippocampal cells in response to exercise in rats.
Ah, like those classic studies on enriched environments.
Precisely. Marion Diamond's work. You have rats in basically a rat Disney World, toys, buddies, running wheels, compared to rats in standard cages.
And the Disney World rats had.
Significantly thicker brain coverings. And the really striking finding was in the babies born to mothers who lived and ran in that enriched environment. Their brains showed the biggest changes.
Wow, that's a pretty clear model, isn't it?
It really is. It provides strong, fundamental evidence that physical activity directly impacts brain structure. It underpins why exercise likely helps us maintain brain health, maybe even age beautifully, as she puts it. It's a key piece, even if human studies are messier.
It sounds like understanding something this complex, how moving our bodies affects everything, really needs, well, a team approach.
For sure. The source really emphasizes this need for multidisciplinary work. Getting neuroscientists, talking to cardiologists, talking to bone experts, it's hard to do across different fields.
Breaking down the silos.
Exactly. But she sees that integrated approach as the future. It's the only way we'll fully grasp these really complex interactions in our bodies and minds.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. From movement's direct effects to another area where she applies this idea of brain plasticity, anxiety.
Yeah.
How does she define anxiety here?
She talks about it as that feeling of fear or worry, usually linked to uncertainty about the future. And she's clear it's a spectrum, right? From everyday jitters to clinical conditions.
And we're focusing more on the everyday kind.
Yeah, the kind most of us experience pretty regularly.
And part of what fuels that is our brain's built-in negativity bias.
Yes. It's an old survival mechanism. We're just wired to notice threats, potential problems more easily than positive stuff. It kept our ancestors safe.
But it can get stuck in overdrive.
Especially when we're stressed or tired, yeah. It can really ramp up everyday anxiety.
So what's happening inside the brain then?
You've got key players. The amygdala, that's like the brain's smoke detector or alarm system. It fires up automatically with potential danger or uncertainty.
Okay.
And then you have the prefrontal cortex. That's your executive function hub, planning, reasoning, calming things down. But here's the catch.
Uh-oh.
In moments of high anxiety or stress, the prefrontal cortex can actually get sort of dampened. Its ability to regulate that amygdala alarm gets weaker.
So the alarm's going off, and the part that should help quiet it down is offline.
Pretty much. Makes it hard to think straight or calm yourself down. But this is where plasticity is key again.
How does plasticity help with anxiety?
Because your brain can change. You can learn new ways to respond, new ways to think. You can, as she puts it, flip the script on your relationship with anxiety.
So not just see it as this bad thing we need to eliminate.
Exactly. Instead of trying to just, kick anxiety out the door, she suggests reframing it. See it as a normal, even protective human emotion. We all have it.
It evolved for a reason.
Right. It's trying to protect us. So the goal isn't eradication. Maybe it's understanding, maybe even finding value in it.
And her own personal experience with grief really shaped this idea.
Hugely. She was already writing her book, Good Anxiety, about the science. But then she went through this incredibly difficult time, losing her father and then her brother very close together.
Wow, that's immense.
It is. And she had to pause the writing, obviously, just to process that grief. She used her own tools, exercise, friends, meditation.
Things she researches.
Yeah. And then during an exercise video, the trainer said something like, with great pain comes great wisdom.
And that clicked.
It really resonated. She thought about her grief, and the wisdom wasn't just pain, it was the incredible love she felt for them. That was underneath it all.
Okay.
So that sparked a question. If grief, this awful feeling, could hold wisdom and love, could anxiety, this other uncomfortable emotion, also have gifts, superpowers even?
Superpowers in anxiety, that's a radical reframing.
It really is, and it sent her looking for them, actively seeking the potential upsides. She talks about 6 in the book, but highlights 3 main ones.
Okay, let's hear them. What's the first anxiety superpower?
The superpower of productivity. This comes from that what-if list. You know, the worries that pop into your head.
Usually when you're trying to sleep.
Exactly. She points out, look closely at those worries. They're almost always about things that actually matter deeply to you. Your job, your family, your health.
So the anxiety is flagging things that are important.
Right, and the superpower is turning that anxious energy into action. You take the what-if list and make it a to-do list.
Concrete steps.
Yes, sending the email, making the call, working on the task for just 30 minutes. Taking action taps into that old fight-or-flight response, which was designed for movement, for doing something. Action helps dissipate the anxiety tied to just worrying.
That makes a lot of sense. Channel the worry into doing. Okay, superpower number 2.
The superpower of flow, or more specifically, microflow.
Microflow. I thought anxiety killed flow states.
That's the standard thinking, yeah. Flow is being totally absorbed, losing track of time. But she describes being really anxious, dealing with writer's block, and then going to a yoga class.
Yeah.
During Shavasana, the final rest pose, she suddenly felt completely present, calm, good. She recognized it. This is flow, a tiny moment of it, a microflow.
Flow while just lying there. Interesting.
Right, and she realized these little moments, feeling capable, connected, present, happen all the time. But here's the twist she noticed.
Yes.
The anxiety she felt before that Shavasana, the writer's block stress, it actually made that tiny moment of microflow feel even sweeter, more noticeable because of the contrast.
Whoa. So the anxiety makes the good moments feel better.
That's the idea. Paradoxically, your anxieties can make those little pockets of feeling good, those microflows, feel, well, flowier. They highlight the positive.
That's a really different perspective. Okay, third superpower.
The superpower of empathy. This one starts by getting really familiar with your most common type of anxiety, the one you know inside and out.
Like maybe social anxiety or performance anxiety?
Exactly, whatever your go-to anxiety is. Then you turn that awareness outward.
How do you mean?
You start noticing when other people might be feeling that same way. Because you know that feeling so well, you can recognize it in others.
Ah, so you can spot it.
Yes. And your superpower is then offering a kind word, a small gesture of support, maybe asking a gentle question. She uses her own example of lifelong shyness, being terrified to ask questions in class.
Right.
That anxiety became a teaching superpower. She actively anticipates the questions students might be too shy to ask because she remembers exactly how that feels. It builds empathy.
Using your own struggle to connect. That's powerful. And this ability to reframe, to see anxiety differently, it sounds like it requires cognitive flexibility.
Absolutely. It's totally linked. Cognitive flexibility is just that the ability to shift your perspective, to not get stuck in one way of thinking, especially negative loops.
Which the negativity bias pulls us towards.
Right. So cognitive flexibility is crucial for reframing anxiety and for building what she calls an activist mindset.
An activist mindset towards your own thoughts.
Exactly. Being active, not passive. Instead of just accepting the first negative thought or anxious feeling, you actively use cognitive flexibility to look for other possibilities.
Like looking for the gift in the anxiety.
Precisely. Just like she did with grief, actively looking for the love underneath the pain. With anxiety, it's actively looking for the superpower, the productive energy, the potential for empathy in your specific anxiety.
And this ties into resilience too, doesn't it? Bouncing back.
It does. Resilience is built by getting through difficult things. She mentions those animal studies, again, rats raised with zero stress versus rats with some mild intermittent stress.
And the ones with mild stress were tougher later on.
Significantly more resilient when faced with a big challenge later. It shows that navigating difficulty using positive coping strategies builds psychological strength. It gives truth to what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
And positive coping mechanisms are key here. Things like exercise, meditation, that activist mindset.
Yes, as opposed to negative coping mechanisms like maybe drinking too much or other unhealthy habits which might feel better short-term but don't build long-term strength.
So the activist mindset using cognitive flexibility is a powerful, positive coping tool.
Exactly. And she suggests looking to role models, people you admire for how they handle adversity. See how they demonstrate flexibility and resilience. Use them as a guide for practicing it yourself.
Wow, we've covered so much ground. From exercise literally making our brains bigger, fatter, fluffier,
Yeah, boosting mood and focus immediately and building memory and resilience long term.
all the way to seeing how that same brain plasticity
Hmm?
lets us tackle something like anxiety, not just as a burden, but maybe as a source of unexpected strength.
It's all connected, isn't it? The physical activity, the neurochemicals, the growth factors, the brain's ability to change, and then applying that changeability to our mindset, even around the difficult emotions like anxiety.
Finding productivity, appreciating microflow, building empathy, all potentially hidden within anxiety if we look with flexibility and resilience.
It really paints a picture of how much agency we have, through our actions and our mindset.
It really does. So here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Given everything we've discussed, this incredible plasticity of your brain, its power to change based on what you do and how you think.
Yeah, how might understanding the science of movement, the potential for reframing anxiety inspire you?
Could it inspire you to make just one small intentional change today, maybe towards that bigger, fatter, happier brain?
Or maybe starting to look for the hidden gifts within your own anxieties. Where could you start?
We'll leave you with that thought.